You're the leader of your company. Are you better than average at your job? If you said yes, watch this video. Here's the bad news. Nearly 100% of leaders said yes, and yet statistically, only 50% of you can be right. So this is why this video is very important. So the reason I called it How to Be Successful or Right, though these aren't mutually exclusive, there is a bias in human beings. And while, like I said, it can be aligned, it isn't necessarily the case that they are. You're not right and successful. In fact, your probability of success is actually going to go down substantially if you always seek to be right, if you always assume you're right without looking more carefully at the evidence. That is, having the opportunity to allow other people to tell you, to prove to you why you're wrong, because they know stuff you don't know, just as you know stuff they don't know. Okay, so it's really important here. Never abandon your position just because, like, oh, well, I need to be wrong some of the time, or I need to question myself. You do, but don't do it without cause. This is one of the reasons I'm such a big 𝗙 𝗕𝗲 fan, is he talks about this all the time. Have people, credible people, who disagree with you. Not just people who disagree with you. Any idiot can disagree with you for the sake of doing it, but they should disagree with you for a good cause, based on actual data or based on actual information of some kind. So Adam Grant, in his book Think Again, describes how Steve Jobs, he always made the right decision, right? Well, actually, no. Steve Jobs was against developing or commercializing the iPhone because he thought it would cannibalize iPod sales. And, he was probably right. He probably was going to cannibalize iPod sales if he did that. Except, luckily, one of his braver Apple engineers, or perhaps a team, I can't remember which, pushed for the development of the iPhone anyway, and through hopefully good sense and logic and other things, convinced Steve that, maybe they should go ahead with this iPhone thing. Had that not happened, Steve would have been right, but he would not have been nearly as successful. But what would have really happened is, as I said, the iPod sales probably would have continued to be strong, but nobody, because they didn't even exist, would have bought the iPhone instead at a much higher profit. Okay, I don't know what the percentage is, but obviously an iPhone is a heck of a lot more expensive than an iPod. And by Steve, at least in this one particular case, not insisting on being right, he and his company and everybody involved were more successful, because though right and successful can go together, if you insist on always being right, that is blindly so, as is often the case with leaders, because after all, they're the leader, they're the big dog, right? We're the guys who know, because if we didn't know, we wouldn't be the leader. Except we're just as susceptible to biases as anyone else. So I looked it up just before, because essentially this is the overconfidence effect, or the overconfidence bias. And I found 10 flavors of overconfidence bias. I usually favor, because it relates back to almost every one, is confirmation bias rather than overconfidence bias or overconfidence effect. But in Wikipedia, under the overconfidence effect, we have overestimation, illusion of control, contrary evidence, overprecision, confidence intervals, overplacement, comparative optimism effects, positive illusions, social knowledge, and better than average effects. Now, of these, of course, the one I illustrated at the beginning of this video was the overconfidence effect. I would be willing to bet because you're a leader, though this effect is basically universal within the human population, it is going to be especially high for leaders because they are, after all, leaders and have that confirmation, which then becomes the confirmation bias that they have been right in the past. So leaders, I would guess, would even be skewed more on the distribution. Something like about 70 or 80% of people, when asked if they are better than average at their job, that's the normal population, not leaders, say they are better than average. Of course, that's impossible. Only 50% of people can be better than average, and 50% of people can be less than average, statistically speaking. No other alternative is possible, but yet somehow 80 to 90 and maybe even closer to 100% of leaders are better than average. Well, that's just not the reality of the situation, which is when we get into the bias, the difference between being successful and being right. It's wonderful to be both, but if you have to choose one, which would you rather be? So what's interesting here is if you take any person and you ask them, are you in the top 50%? Are you a better than average engineer, accountant, dancer, singer, charmer, speaker? The vast majority of people will say yes, when we know that isn't the case. So this affects, as I said, the entire human population, but especially leaders. So it doesn't matter what you fill that blank in with. Everybody considers themselves, or nearly everybody considers themselves, better than average at anything. Let's see. You know, don't get me wrong. What's really important here is obviously too much uncertainty will paralyze you as a leader, but too much overconfidence will make you feel right, but far less successful. So you decide which of those you want your company, your organization to be. And it comes down to that continuum I've been talking about now for about a week, and that is overconfident or underconfident, right or successful. It is in fact a continuum. But in terms of successful, you want to be on the extreme end of the successful continuum. And one way to be that is to decide that you are not always right and you are willing to let credible others question you with credible evidence so that you can be like Steve Jobs and choose the iPhone despite the fact that you didn't think it was initially the right move. We already know the history, the empirical results of that. So it's really important because what it is you can be overconfident, and here's really what it comes down to. You can either be paralyzed by uncertainty and indecisiveness. That's no good for a leader. But reckless overconfidence, uncertainty would probably kill you slowly, could cause your company to stagnate, to take less and less risks and become less and less competitive and relevant in your sector. But reckless overconfidence, being right all the time, could kill you in a day or a week or a month because you made big, stupid, overconfident bets in spite of the evidence instead of because of the evidence. That's the danger of being right all the time. Be neither. Instead, optimize along that continuum that we talked about between the two extremes and become what Philip E. Tetlock described as super forecasters. Do this by assuming you know some, but not all of the relevant variables in any decision you make, in any opinion you have, and look to credible others, especially the ones that disagree with you, who are also credible others, to balance off your own ego, your own bias. Because if they have the bias in the other direction, again, statistically, that will average out and probably make you more successful and more correct objectively or empirically rather than right. So if you got any value out of this, please share, like, and subscribe. That's it for Crush It Club episode 119, How to Be Successful or Right. My name is Tim B. Green. Bye for now.